सर स्लाइड विजिबल है सर?
जी
स्लाइड विजिबल है सर? Sir, is this slide is visible?
Yes. To me, it's visible. Yes.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. We are again back in the fourth day of our FDP program on sensor technology. And the technical session for today's program will start on the topic of introduction to the chemical, biochemical and gas sensors, which will be taken by Dr. Rahul Prajesh. So I welcome Dr. Rahul Prajesh on behalf of the organizing team of this FDP program. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So we'll start with the introduction of Dr. Rahul Prajesh. Dr. Rahul Prajesh holds the position of Senior Scientist in CSIR Central Electronics Engineering Research Institute. He has completed PhD from CSIR SIRI under ACSIR. His MTech in Advanced Semiconductor Electronics in 2012 from CSIR SIRI. BTech in Electronics and Communication Engineering in the year 2010 from University of Dehradun, Uttarakhand. His research area covers gas sensor platform development, chemical and biochemical sensors, gas sensing materials, micro nano technologies, surface characterization techniques. And he holds the life membership in the forum of the Institute of Engineering, India. So with this, I would like to welcome sir once again, and to all the participants, just to inform you all that there will be no quiz today. The attendance for every session will be flowed at the last half an hour of the session. So, and the first session there were no attendance. This is our first technical session. So the attendance for the same will be floating from 11:05 a.m. onwards. So good morning, sir, once again, and please proceed with your presentation, sir.
Dr. Rahul Prajesh, you're warm welcome on this particular platform on Atal FDP on sensor technology. And sir, your cooperation, your back view is very beautiful. So we all want to see that particular view of lab so that everyone can energize for whole of their life or their future. So, sir, please go ahead.
Thank you, Jayanji. Thank you very much for your brief introduction. And my good morning to everyone. Dear Jayanji, organizing committee, and all the members who are attending this through online session. I'll be sharing my presentation. So my today's talk is related to metal oxide gas sensors. These are basically chemical sensors. I will discuss why and how. Basically, why we need these sensors and how these sensors are fabricated and how to use them. So this is basically the will be the talk of discussion today. I'll start with the famous quote: "If you can't measure it, you can't improve it." Basically, your sensors are there to measure something, and why you need sensors? So that you can improve on the situation. So if you can't measure a situation, you cannot improve on that. So that's why I like this quote very much. And I request others who are not speaking, please mute their mic. It's a small request, please. So in today's discussion, we will be covering sensors, what are different sensor parameters. And to make these sensors, we need MEMS technology, micro electromechanical system technology. What is MEMS? I'll discuss on that. I will discuss on metal oxide based gas sensors more briefly, and what are the opportunities in this particular area. So before I proceed further, I'll discuss what are these sensors. Sensors is a technological device that detects, senses a signal. It may be physical or it may be chemical and gives us the electrical output according to that. So if you can relate sensors with our 5 senses: sight, hearing, touch, smell, taste. So these are sensors which we are already having. These are God-gifted sensors to us. Now there is another term which is transducer. So what is the difference between a sensor and a transducer? Before I discuss that, I should share you the statistical data where you see the graph of sensors demand is increasing day by day. If you see 2025, the graph is increasing drastically. And in the Asia Pacific, you see there is a huge demand of sensors. So this is a very important area to work in. And we are at CSR CD Pilani, we are working on different sensors. So if you see, these are the different examples of sensors where you have thermometer. So it's basically a temperature sensor. Thermocouple, again a temperature sensor. Phototransistors and microphone. These are typical example of sensors. So in first two, you see the temperature, a physical condition is converted into temperature, which is an electrical quantity. Again, phototransistors where light is converted into electrical energy. Then you have microphones where a physical energy, basically vibrations, are converted into electrical energy. So these are different examples of sensors. Now, there is one more term which is actuators. When you talk about sensors, another term is actuators. So when you convert physical chemical energy to electrical energy, these are called sensors. And if it is vice versa, you have input as electrical signal and you are observing some motion, basically mechanical motion. So that calls actuator. And the combination of sensors and actuators is called transducer. Hope now it is very clear what is sensor, actuator, and what is transducer. So transducer is basically any form of energy to another form of energy. So where you see there are two parts, sensor and actuator. In sensor, physical chemical quantities are being converted into electrical energy. And on the other hand, in actuators, electrical signal gives you some mechanical motion or mechanical displacement. So this is actuator. So combination of called transducers. There are some examples of these transducers like antenna, tape head, disc read and write head. These are the examples of these transducers. Now, if you are talking about sensors, it is important to understand different parameters which are related to sensors. So first very important parameter is sensitivity. What is sensitivity? And sometimes we call it as response also. Sensitivity is, it is the slope of characteristic curve. Characteristic curves means where you have some input quantity on x-axis and the output quantity on y-axis. So if you see, this is a linear curve and the slope of this curve will give you sensitivity. But sometimes you take it as response. Response is basically change in y-axis with respect to the initial value of y-axis. This is a response. And sensitivity is change in y-axis with respect to change in x-axis. This is sensitivity. Another important parameter is accuracy and precision. So accuracy means your value, your measurement value should be as close to the actual value. That's accuracy. If it is very close to the actual value, your measurement is accurate. And what is precise? Precision is when your multiple measurements are lying in this close packed region, that shows the precision. There are 4 examples. In first one, the measurements are close to each other. Also, they are close to the actual value, the real value. That means these are highly accurate and highly precise. In the second example, you see the measurements are close to each other. That means they are precise, but they are away from the actual value. That means they are not accurate. In the third one, if you see the average of all the measurements, that will be close to the real value. So that means it is accurate, but these are not closely packed. They are not close to each other. That means it's not precise. So you see the difference between precision and accuracy. In the fourth example, the average of all the measurements lies somewhere over here, but the real value is here. So this is not accurate, and also the measurements are not close to each other. That means it's neither precise. So it's low accurate and low precise. Other parameters are like error. Error is basically the difference between the actual value and measured value. So this is the error. So error should be as low as possible if you want to have a good measurement. Next one is linearity. So what is linearity? Like in previous curve, you have seen you have made some measurements and you are trying to fit a linear line on that. Now you need to understand whether your measurements are falling exactly on the line or is there some difference with respect to the best fit. Now there are two ways of calculating non-linearity. One is endpoint method, another one is the best fit method. So you draw a best fit line and see what are the differences between the individual values with respect to the best fit line. Now you need to calculate how much difference you are getting at individual point, and the maximum out of those will be called as non-linearity. It should be linear. If you want to have a good result, your values should be linear to the x and y, between x and y axis. Another important parameter is response time and recovery time. So response time is most of the times time taken to reach 90% of the saturation value after trigger. Trigger is any situation which is being offered to the sensor. So for example, you are getting something like this. So at this point, there is a trigger. There is some input to the sensor, and sensor response falls. So, and this is the saturation value. So from the point of start to the 90% of saturation value, this is your response time. Same is the case for recovery time. This is the off point. From off point to 90% of the saturation value, this is your recovery time. These were some important parameters related to the MEMS, related to the sensors. Now to fabricate these sensors, we have a technology called MEMS. And MEMS is made of, importantly, three words: micro, electro, mechanical. So these systems in combination to each other forms MEMS, micro electromechanical systems. It's also referred as micro machines. It's also referred as microsystem technologies in different areas of the world. Now, just to give you an idea, MEMS lies in a range of 1 micron, or sorry, let's say 100 nanometer to 1 mm. This is the typical range where we work in the area of MEMS. And just to give you an idea, your human hair is somewhere around 100 microns. And a typical dimension of the virus is somewhere around 100 nanometer. So if you talk about COVID virus, which is very like burning thing nowadays, it is around 120 nanometers. So this such small COVID virus is like has given us a lot of panic. Now this is the dimension of human hair. Now you can have an idea what is the size of a virus. So this is around 1,000 times smaller than the human hair, this COVID virus. And in this particular range, 100 nanometer to 1 mm, we are working in the area of MEMS, micro electromechanical systems. What are the application of MEMS? Now, if you can see the inkjet printer nozzles, these are fabricated by MEMS. Projector DMDs, digital micromirror devices, these are fabricated by MEMS. Accelerometers, these are important to deploy airbags in the car. So, for example, suppose there is a sudden brakes applied on the car, then airbags may deploy with the help of if there is an impact also. So, if there is certain brake as well as impact is there, so brakes are deployed. So, this is one of the application of MEMS. Another applications are gyroscope. In your phones, you must have seen when you rotate your phone automatically senses the position and changes the portrait and landscape mode. Why this happens? This happens because of the gyroscope inbuilt in the phone. So your phones have inbuilt gyroscope. Not every phone, but most of the phones have gyroscope inbuilt, and that can sense the rotational motion of the phone. Another important sensor is pressure sensor. So in like high-end cars nowadays, these tire pressure monitoring systems are available. You can fit the sensor to the tire, and on the dashboard you can get the live values of the pressure, so that if there is leak inside the tire, you will be able to know you are going to have a problem or not. So you can have a predictive maintenance kind of thing if you know the real-time data of the tires. Another important sensor is non-destructive testing CMUT sensor, capacitive micro machine ultrasonic transducer. So this is another important sensor where we are using mechanical waves, and these mechanical waves strikes to a surface and returns back. So these reflected waves are sensed, and if there is a part difference or phase difference, based on that we get information of this surface. So this is used in non-destructive testing. For example, if there are cracks in buildings, if there are cracks in bridges, we can use these type of sensors, and we can have information about the cracks and health of the structural health, basically. Now, what are the advantages of MEMS sensors? So these MEMS sensors are very small in size, and the fabrication process can give you lots of sensors on a single wafer. This is a typical wafer you are looking at. On one wafer, if you take this small box, this is one device. So there are so many devices on single wafer, and at once you can process at least 10 to 25 wafers. So if you are processing 25 wafers at a time, so you can imagine how many number of sensors you are able to fabricate at once. So this is the advantage of MEMS. So this is what is written over here: fabrication of multiple systems at a time reduces time, cost, and gives good yield. So you are able to save so much time and cost. So this is the advantage. This is a typical sensor you are able to see over here. I'll show you one gas sensor also. This is what we have fabricated at CSR Civil Pilani. So this is a small sensor, gas sensor. Before I move further, I'll show you a small video how we make sensors at CSR Civil Pilani. I have made a small video. It's a 1-2 minute video. I'll show you that, and then we'll move forward. These are the clean rooms. So this is the chemistry area.
Sir, the screen is not visible to us, sir.
It's not visible.
No, sir.
Okay, just a minute. Let me share it once again. It's visible now?
Yes, sir, it is visible now, sir.
So I'll play the video once again. It's a small video. So these are the clean rooms I was talking about. This is the chemistry area. These are furnaces. So this was a small video where you must have seen how a clean room looks like and how we work in clean rooms. So there are different instruments in the clean room. So and then they process different activities. So here you can see this is a typical one type of packaging. So this is as I mentioned earlier, this one small box is one chip. This one chip goes into this header, and then you have different pads on the header, and you can take connections out of these pads. So this chip is inside this particular header. So these are so small sensors. Like I also have shown, this is a sensor which we have fabricated at CD. It's a small sensor. And this is a complete housing. This chip is inside the housing. Now, this we have already discussed. Now, from where we get these wafers? This is from sand to silicon to sensors. So silicon wafer. These wafers are created from sand, and from wafers we create different sensors. And everywhere you will see these small boxes. So this one box is one chip, one wafer. How this sand is converted into silicon wafer? So this sand is first heated metallurgical, and we create metallurgical grade silicon. After that we create polysilicon after heating, and further heating gives you single crystalline silicon, and single crystalline silicon in the form of a cylinder. So this is a cylinder which is single crystalline silicon, and this cylinder is further diced into pieces, sliced into pieces, and one piece is called a wafer. This is a typical process how from sand to silicon wafer we are getting. Now you can see nowadays people are working like 12-inch wafers, 1 foot. So this is around your like plate, your eating plate. So around the size of your eating plate. So this is a typical size of wafer nowadays. What we are working in like CD and all, we are working on 2-inch wafer, 3-inch wafer, as well as 4-inch wafer, and sometimes up to 6-inch wafers. But industries, they are working on 8-inch wafer and 12-inch wafers. But we are like being an R&D institution, we cannot afford this much size of wafers. So we are like working with 2, 3, 4 inch wafers most of the times. This is the typical size of wafer. Now, to give you a basic understanding of the semiconductor fabrication process, you should understand there are three most important processes, which I have highlighted into blue color. So first is deposition, second is patterning, and third is etching. You just have to remember these three because these are the most important processes. Deposition, you grow something, grow or deposit anything on the wafer. Then you make desired pattern on the wafer using lithography. Now, some parts are desired and some parts are not desired on the wafer. So undesired wafer and undesired part of the material is removed using etching. So this etching may be dry etching or it may be a wet etching. So anything, any type of etching is used to remove the unwanted part. So just to give you a feel, you can have an example of PCB. So this is copper plated PCB you have. Then you make patterns on the PCB and remove the unwanted copper. So this is deposition. You deposit a copper on the PCB plate. Then you pattern on your circuits in the desired manner, and you etch the unwanted copper. So this is how your PCB is made. So here also you can take the example of semiconductor fabrication process where you deposit, pattern, and etch. So these are the important parameters, processes basically. So what are the different other processes? Chemical, mechanical, planarization, ion implantation, diffusion. These are some other important processes of semiconductor fabrication. Now let's come to the metal oxide gas sensors. You must have seen the video where we have talked about metal oxide gas sensors. In metal oxide gas sensors, why we need these sensors? You must have seen all these clips in news, videos, TV. So there have been so many incidences in the past where the incidence was because of the gas leak. So if you have installed the proper gas sensors in the system and there was proper closed loop mechanism available, so these tragedies would have been stopped. So this gives you a motivation why the gas sensors are important. So a gas sensor is a device that can detect a specific gas even if the concentration is very small. Now why I have made this cartoon over here, this is a cartoon of dog. And the dog nose is considered as one of the best gas sensors available in nature. This is 10 times better than our human nose because the number of receptors inside the dog nose are 6 to 10 times more than the human nose. So that's why it's considered as the better gas sensor, because it can take, and it also has a olfactory system where it can retain the gas for a long time. You must have seen like a dog sniffs a cloth and it can follow the path to reach to someone because it can store the smell for a long time and it can follow that particular smell even if the concentration is very low. Now what this bird is doing over here, this is canary bird. Now in olden days, people used to send these canary birds to mines or closed areas where they must have where the chances of having less oxygen or toxic gas were more. So they used to send these birds. If the bird stops singing or it doesn't come back, that means that area is not safe to go in. So these were the gas sensors at the olden days. But now we have the advanced technology and we can fabricate gas sensors. So we have these type of sensors nowadays. So where are the application of gas sensors? So the applications are in process control industries where you have silane, ammonia and other gases. Environmental monitoring where you can detect carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, methane. Fire detection, alcohol detection in drink and drive cases. Detection of harmful gases in mines, carbon monoxide, phosphine, methane, H2S, these type of gases are useful in mines. Home safety. So these are the different areas where gas sensors are used or can be used. Now to make the gas sensors, we have different technologies. A sensor is basically, as I told initially, it converts any physical chemical property to electrical property. Now in electrical property also there are different properties which we can observe. So we can observe resistive changes, we can observe capacitive changes, acoustic changes, optical changes. So based on these different technology, different property changes, we have different technologies. So we have resistive gas sensors, we have capacitive gas sensors, acoustic gas sensors, optical gas sensors. Now depending on what property is changing after the gas is there on the sensor, which property is changing, that tells you which technology is being used. Now here today we will discuss only about the resistive gas sensor, how it is made and what are the different components. So there are two different components for a resistive type of gas sensor. First is microheater and the second is sensing part, which includes interdigital electrodes and sensing film. So we have a substrate. On top of that we have a microheater. On top of that we have a passivation layer so that the electrodes and heater are not shorted together. We have an electrical isolation layer. And on top of that we have sensing film. So this is the typical schematic of a gas sensor. Now why we need these different parts? So first part is microheater. So microheater is required to provide a required temperature, because when a gas gets absorbed on the surface, there is a reaction happening on the surface, and that reaction happens only when a sufficient temperature is provided. That sufficient temperature is provided by the microheater. So microheater provides the sufficient temperature for the reaction to happen, and sensing film reacts with the specific gas and changes its own resistance. So resistance of the sensing film changes when the gas gets absorbed on the surface. So this is the basic mechanism, how it works. So you can see this gas gets absorbing on the surface. Now the resistance of this particular film, resistance either will increase or it will decrease. It will increase if there is oxidation of the surface. It will decrease if there is reduction of the surface. Oxidation means loss of electron. This film will lose electrons. That means the gas will take electron from the surface and increase the resistance of the film. Or what may happen, the gas is something like it is reducing the surface and it is giving electron to the surface, so that the conductivity of the surface is increasing and resistance is decreasing. So there are two possibilities. So you have to measure this change only. You have to measure either the resistance is increasing or decreasing, and the amount of change tells you the concentration of the gas. So you have to measure increase or decrease, and also you have to measure how much change is there. It is increasing by how much factor. Now, if you go deep into the physics, you will see every material has some grain boundaries. So most of the times these metal oxides, we are using metal oxides over here. These metal oxides are granular in nature. So granular in nature means there are grain boundaries. So this is a grain boundary over here. And the adsorption of gas is has highest probability at the grain boundaries. So it will adsorb towards the grain boundaries. And because of the adsorption, the electron transfer from this side to this side or this side to this side will be difficult. Why it will be difficult? Because if you see oxygen is oxidizing in nature. It will take electron from the surface and it will create the depletion region. So it will deplete the surface. Deplete means this part will be lacking electrons. If it is lacking electrons, the barrier at this interface will increase. The barrier will increase, so the electron transfer from one side to another side will be difficult. So this is why the resistance is increasing on the adsorption of an oxidizing gas. If there is a reducing gas on the surface, what will happen? This barrier will go down because there will be release of electrons inside the film. So this barrier will go down and the resistance will decrease. And at different temperatures, different species of oxygens are available on the surface. Like for example, at less than 100 degrees centigrade, O2 minus is available on the surface, which is available for the reaction of any target gas. 100 to 300, O minus is available, and greater than 300, O2 minus is available. So this will decide how much electron transfer is taking place on the surface. Now you understand the physics of gas sensing. There are different specifications which are important if you want to design a good gas sensor. So I have divided them into three categories: electrical, physical, and sensor-based characteristics specifications. In electrical specifications, what is important? At what voltage your sensor will work, what will be the maximum current it will draw, what will be the initial resistance of the sensor, what will be the maximum resistance, what will be the initial resistance, and thermal coefficient of resistance is also important. Now there are physical parameters. Physical parameters means the geometry of this sensor. What is the line width? What is the total length it is taking? What is the material thickness you are taking to achieve the desired specifications? And also what concentration of gas you are targeting your gas sensor. This is also the specification you need to freeze before you make the gas sensor. You have to work out, you have to simulate your gas sensor before it is fabricated. Now, first component is micro heater. So micro heater is basically a resistor. It's a resistive device, resistive thing. Now, there are different geometries possible. So to make a good micro heater, you need to understand this is a coil. Like in your hot plate, you must have seen the room heaters also. There are different coils. So these coils are basically resistors. The material of the resistor is important. The geometry of the resistor is important. Because geometry is important because that will tell you the uniformity inside that particular area. So you can see there are three different geometries which are mostly used. One is double spiral, S shape, and fan shape. So different geometries are used to achieve a uniform heating, because your sensing film will be lying on this particular area. So your sensing film will be completely heated. It should not be like the central part is heated and the corners are not heated. It should not be like that. So completely it should be heated so that you can get the maximum sensitivity. Now, second important parameter is material. So material is important. It should be resistive material. So conductors, very good conductors like silver, copper, these are not very good material for heating. So for heating, there are platinum, nichrome, tungsten. These are the important materials which can be used. And geometry, double spiral geometry is very good because it can give you a uniform heating. And geometry should not be very complex that you are not able to make it. It should be easier to fabricate, and it should also give you sufficient uniform heating across the area. Now, your material should be chosen depending on the what is the resistivity, what is the availability, what is cost, and these are the different factors. So platinum is costly, but this is very stable at high temperatures. This is very stable chemically, physically. Nichrome, it gets oxidized at high temperatures. Tungsten is difficult to process. That's why we most of the time use platinum as micro heater material. These are the simulations. I have used COMSOL to simulate this structure. And in structure, if you are able to see, only the active part, this part is heated, and you are getting a very good uniform heating in the active area, and you are able to achieve a very high temperature. So now, based on the specifications you made, these are the specifications you made, you first simulate your structure, whether you are able to achieve these significant properties or not, your specifications are achievable or not, then you go for fabrication. So in a micro heater, you see, this works on the principle of Joule heating. This is the electrical energy which is being applied. This is converted into thermal energy, Ms delta T into T. Now, this electrical energy is thermal energy plus losses. So this will give you temperature rise inside the active area. So this is a principle at which this micro heater works. And in losses, there are three different losses: conduction losses, convection losses, and radiation losses. In conduction losses, it depends on how much mass you are heating. Convection losses depends on the ambient. What is the temperature of ambient? What is the airflow rate across it? In radiation losses are most of the times active at higher temperatures. So in the range like 300 to 400, these are not very significant, so we can ignore them. So only these two are important for gas sensing type of applications. Now, very important is conduction loss. So conduction loss depends, as I told you, it depends on the thermal mass you are heating. Like if you see the equation, in equation there is a term called mass, M. This mass is important. If you have more mass to heat, you will need more energy to get a higher temperature. To reduce the conduction losses, what we do is we remove the material from the back side of the chip, so that you have very small mass to heat and you get high temperature even at the lower power consumption. You can see the difference. This is a case 1 and 2. Case 1, we don't have removed the material from the back. In case 2, we have removed the material from back. So you can see for a given power, we are able, there is hardly any change in temperature, 26 to 30 degrees centigrade only. But when you remove the material from the bag, you see it is 26 degree to 585 degrees centigrade. So that much increase in temperature you are able to get. So this is the advantage of removing material from the bag. Now, it's also important to understand what is the active area and what is the cavity area. Like you see over here, this is the cavity area. And if you see inside, this is your active area. This is cavity area to active area ratio is also very important. And like I show you in the next picture. In this picture, you are able to see this is the cavity area. This much part has been removed from the bag, and this is your active area. So this should be cavity area active area ratio should be somewhere around 1.5 to 2. So you should have larger opening than the active area to get the best possible temperature efficiency. It's also important from the back how much material you are removing. Either you are removing a complete silicon from the back, or there is some silicon left at the back. So these are the results. If you see, this is 9 micron silicon left, this is 6 micron, this is 3 micron, and this is 0 micron. That means no silicon left. You see the drastic change in temperature increase. If you see 100 milliwatt, at 100 milliwatt you are able to achieve 600 degrees centigrade. But if you see if silicon is remaining on the back, you are only able to achieve 100 degrees centigrade. So this is the advantage of having removed complete silicon from the back. So your complete silicon from the back should be removed to achieve the best performance of your sensor. Another important part of the gas sensor is interdigital electrodes. So why you need electrodes? To measure the resistance of the sensing film, the sensing material. To measure its resistance, it is important to have interdigital electrodes. You can have 2 electrodes like this, 2 terminals, that's good enough. But that's not good enough because these materials have high resistance. So that's why you make some parallel resistance combination so that the resistance is reduced and you are able to measure the resistance. In IDs, interdigital electrodes, it is important to understand what is the gap between electrodes, what is the width of a particular electrodes. These are the different important parameters. You should design them accordingly. This is the typical total resistance. If you know what is the resistance of the film initially, how many number of fingers you are taking, and this is the proportionality factor. So now once you understand about all the components like micro heater, this is interdigital electrodes, and in the active area, this is dotted portion you are seeing over here. This is the sensing film. So once you have integrated all the layers, your sensor is ready. Now, last important parameter factor in component is sensing film. So in material, what is important? Your stoichiometry of the material should be very good. Thickness of the material should be good. Grain size, sensitivity, all these parameters should be optimized. Then only you will be able to get the desired sensing performance of your sensor. Stoichiometry is decided by either EDEX or XRD. You are able to understand what crystal orientation you are able to achieve. That should be categorized by EDEX and XRD. Thickness is important because with the thickness, your response will change. This is a result from my work where you are able to see like 100 nanometer to 150 nanometer. This is the desired range where your thickness should be to get the best sensitivity. Another important parameter is grain size. Grain size, as I told you earlier, these metal oxide films are granular in nature. Granular in nature means they have grains and they have grain boundaries. So what should be the size of these grains? Actually, using different parameters, you can optimize the grain size. You can tune the grain size. You can increase the grain size and you can reduce it by changing the deposition parameters. So if you have the tunability, you would like to have best size of grain so that you can get the best response. What is the best size? So as I told you earlier, like these are grains, and if gas gets absorbed on the surface, it gets depleted, and because of the depletion, there is a barrier increase. Barrier gets increased. So for the best sensitivity, while gas is absorbing on the surface, this should be depleted completely. This should be depleted completely. Complete depletion means this depletion width, like this 2D, should be your grain size should be less than this 2D. If it is less than 2D or equal to 2D, then your complete grain will be depleted. If it is completely depleted, that means complete grain is taking part in the sensing behavior, sensing phenomena. If the complete grain is taking part, means you are getting the best response. So that's why grain size is very important. Resistivity is important, because if you don't get the desired resistivity, that means you don't get the resistivity in the range where you can measure it. If it is so high, so you will not be able to measure it. If it is very low, in that particular case, the change will be relatively small. The response will not be very good. Sensitivity will not be very good. So it should be an optimum resistivity so that you can measure it, and also the response is very good. So once you have worked out all the components and you have this right specification, you go for the layout design. So in layout, what you design, you design all the layers you have in your mask, and after the layout design, your masks are made. These masks are used for lithography. So at different levels, you have different mask layer. So for heater, you have one mask layer. For pad opening, you have one mask layer. Then you have ID, interdigital electrodes, and you have sensing film. So these are the different layers of mask you need for making gas sensors. So this is the typical schematic where you see this is a silicon substrate. This is an SiO2 isolation layer. This is micro heater. Then you have a passivation layer. Passivation layer is important, as I told you earlier. This electrode should not be shorted with the micro heater. So that's why you have electrical isolation layer in between. These pads are open so that you can take connection from these pads. Then you have interdigital electrodes, and on top of that you have sensing. This is a typical schematic of the gas sensor. How it is fabricated? First you fabricate the micro heater, then you fabricate the electrodes, then you deposit the sensing layer. So once everything is done, you remove the material from the back side so that your thermal mass is removed. Thermal mass is reduced. So thermal mass is reduced, as I told you earlier. It is important so that you can have higher temperature for a given power consumption. So what is the flow? You make a gas sensing chip, you package it, as I have shown you. This is a typical header, typical package, and it has legs at the back. So these legs are used to take connections for the outer electronics. Then you put that sensor onto the electronics. So this electronics is connected with the sensor, and you measure the gas in the ambient. Now, what are the different characterizations which are important to measure the response of the sensor? So first is you characterize your micro heater. You see, as I told you, this is a resistor. You need to understand how much temperature difference is giving you how much resistance difference, so that you are able to calculate you can with the help of back calculation, you are able to know the temperature. Then you need to understand at what power you are able to achieve what temperature. Like you see, 40 milliwatt, you are able to achieve 300 degrees centigrade, and for 400 degrees centigrade is achieved at 60 milliwatt. So this much power, only 60 milliwatt can give you 400 degrees centigrade. This is the beauty of having a micro heater. So in the small particular area, you have 400 degrees centigrade. You need to understand the transient behavior of the micro heater. So you suddenly heat the micro heater and observe the resistance of the micro heater, and then switch it off immediately just to know the fall time of the micro heater. So you are able to see 25 to 430 degrees centigrade in 5.7 milliseconds and 430 to 25 in 6 milliseconds. This is how fast your micro heater is working. It can go to 430 in 6 milliseconds and go down to the room temperature in 6 milliseconds. This is the beauty of having low thermal mass. If the mass is higher, so it will take more time to heat and cool. So this is the IR image of the actual micro heater, actual working device. So this is the IR image, infrared image of the working device. You are able to see that only this part is heated, only the active part is heated. And you have a kind of uniform heating in the active area. Then characterization of your film is important, as I told you earlier. XRD, FESEM, so that you can know the information about the grains. AFM is important. Once you have characterized your film, your micro heater, then you go for the gas sensing characteristic. So gas sensing is basically, there are two different methods, static and dynamic. In static, what you do, you take a chamber, like this is a typical schematic you see over here. You have gas flow controller, which has micro flow controller, which is basically MFCs, a combination of MFCs. The gas is coming inside the MFCs. From MFC, it is getting mixed and going to the chamber. From chamber, it is going out. Your sensor is mounted over here, and it is supplied with the power supply, and multimeter is connected so that you can measure the resistance. So in static, you insert the gas, seal it so that gas is there, and you check the response. But in dynamic, your gas is continuously going inside the chamber and coming out. There are two different methods of gas sensing characterization. So this is a closer view of the system. You see, there is a hot chuck. The sample is mounted on this hot chuck, and this is connected to the PC through a multimeter. You are able to see the response inside the computer. So this is a typical curve of gas sensing, which I have observed. So initially, this is the resistance when there is air. Then you apply air with the target gas. You see, as soon as this is applied, the resistance falls, gets saturated, and once this is again removed, when you apply only air once again, this gets recovery starts, and it's get completely recovered. Here you can see from the point where you inserted the gas to the 90% of the response. This is the T1 is the response time, and when you switch off the gas and take 90% of the recovery, this is T2, your recovery time. And response is change in resistance with respect to the initial resistance into 100. This much percentage response you are getting. So these are the information which you can extract from this curve. You can get the response, you can get the recovery time, response time. These are the different parameters you can extract from the characteristic curve. Now, this is the gas sensing you have seen. I'll show you some more data which is important to understand how a gas sensor is characterized. Now you characterized your gas sensor at different temperatures. You see, at different temperatures, gas sensor response is increasing and then decreasing once again. So this portion where you're getting the maximum response is called your operating region. So you should operate your gas sensor in this particular area where you're getting the maximum response. So your temperature should be fixed in the particular region only. Also, temperature is important because this affects your response and recovery time. So response time reduces with the higher temperature, and also the recovery times gets faster with higher temperature. So your temperature should be high enough so that you get faster response and faster recovery, and also it should not be so high that you are getting low response. So it should be very optimal, so that you get maximum response as well as you get response faster and faster response and recovery. This is the repeatability analysis. You see, you are applying some gas, checking the response, and again applying for 2-3 times. This is your repeatability. You can go for multiple cycles, 30-40 cycles, to see whether there is a drift or degradation in the sensor response or not. Then finally, you plot the characteristic curve. Characteristic curve is your input characteristic and your output, what you are able to want to see. So input is your concentration. At different concentrations, how much response you are getting. So this should be linear. So this is 10 ppm, you are getting this much response, and 40 ppm, this much 45 ppm, this much response you are getting. So this should be linear. So these are the different characteristics of the gas sensor. Now, where are the opportunities? If you see the opportunities where you can use these gas sensors, where faculties can work in this particular area, faculties or students, where they can work. First, very important area is air quality monitoring. Just a second. Is air quality monitoring. Where you need to understand the concentration of CO, CO2, NO, NO2, SO2, and sometimes PM, particulate matter. These concentrations are required. Another areas are leak detection in various industries. So leak detection of CO, CH4, ammonia, etc. Like I'll give you one example in cold storage. In cold storage, people are using most of the time ammonia for the cooling purpose. So if there is a leak, ammonia is a very harmful gas. If it is toxic, and if it is leaked in high concentration, it can cause a lot of damage. So there you need to have gas sensors so that leak detection can be done. Food quality assessment. So these gas sensors are important in food quality also. How these are important? When your food gets rotten, it's old. Let's say some fruits when they get old or they rot, they emit VOCs. They emit alcohols. So if you can estimate the concentration of these alcohols, you can tell whether this fruit is good to consume or not. So these are different applications. Another very important application is breath analysis for disease diagnostics. You must have heard, like when when some people are sick, their breath contains some biomarkers measuring which you can estimate the health of the person. So if some VOCs are present, let's for example, if acetone is present in your breath, that gives you information that you are diabetic. If NOx is present in your breath, you have lung disease. If you have ammonia coming from your breath, you have renal disease. Renal disease means kidney disease. So just a second. Hello. Gate पर डाल दो. Hello. So breath analysis is very important tool where gas detection, gas sensors can be used. So acetone for diabetes, NOx for lung disease, ammonia for renal disease. These are very important. There are so many. There are thousands of biomarkers which can be used for disease diagnostics. These are some of the examples. So this is just to give you an idea where you can contribute, where you can take projects, where you can help students, where you can benefit society in terms of gas sensors. So at the end, I would like to discuss what are the facilities available at CSIR CD. So CD has a very good clean room which has all the facilities of deposit. As I told you, three things: deposition, patterning, and etching. So deposition, all the things for deposition are available at CSRC, CVD and PVD. Lithography for patterning we have available. Etching, dry etching and wet etching available. Characterization, SEM, AFM, Raman, XRD, electrical measurements, sheet resistance measurements, all these things are available at CSRC. These are some of the pictures I have taken just to give you an idea how these systems look like. These are the furnaces. This is the chemical processing station. This is the mask aligner which is used for lithography purpose. These are sputtering machines. These sputtering machines are used for depositing different materials. Like in example of in view of gas sensors, the sensing material is deposited using reactive sputtering machine. And once you have, this is the complete wafer on the tape. So once you have completed all the processes, like I showed you, like on wafer there is a small square. Now you need to separate those squares using dicing machine. So there is a dicing machine, diamond based dicing machine, which can separate all these squares from the wafer, and you get the chip outside the wafer. Then wafer bonding station, this is also important. So these are the facilities which are available at CSRC Pilani. If any of you need any facilities, you are most welcome. You just contact me. I'll provide you the facility in the fastest possible time. Thank you so much. We can discuss some questions right now.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, sir. Actually, sir, my name is Chandan Datta. I am SRF from CSIR National Metallurgical Laboratory.
Yes.
So I work for NDT lab over here in NML. So, sir, I'm having a couple of questions. If you can clarify those things.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, first of all, I would like to say you that the presentation was really very good, sir.
Thank you.
Because we got to know many things about CSRC Pilani also and about gas sensors also. So, sir, I just want to ask that whether there is any kind of LTCC fabrication facility in CIRI.
Yes, it is available. LTCC fabrication facility is available, and we have all the fabrication line for LTCC. We have screen printing, we have punching, everything is there.
And sir, how many maximum numbers of layer that can be fabricated with that facility?
So we have tried up to 7. We have tried, yes.
And sir, what kind of substrates you use for these LTCC sensor fabrication? Because I think in gas sensor also LTCC is used.
Yes, it is used. We are using alumina as well as LTCC.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
And sir, in this presentation, you shown one packaged gas sensor. So,
right.
So I suppose that sensor has been developed by your group itself in CIRI.
Right.
So, sir, have you commercialized that sensor? Is it available in the market?
Yes, we are in talk with StarC. StarC is a founding foundry in Bangalore. We are in talk with the StarC. They will fabricate our technology at their lab, and then it will be commercialized. Because for commercialization, it should be productionized first. We are not productionizing agency. So we were looking for some agency which can productionize these things. So they have the capability of productionization, and we are talking with them. Soon they will launch these things in market. We have also transferred technology for the electronics of gas sensor.
Sir, one more question, sir. I'm little bit pushing.
This is, if you can see, this is the packaged thing. And on top of that, you see a small square is there, right, in center.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
Yeah, this square inside the center, in center is the chip. So this chip is wire bonded with the headers, and these are the 4 legs. Yeah.
So, sir, is this gas sensor can be exposed at high temperature and harsh environment?
Harsh environment up to what temperature? So if you consider like 100 degrees centigrade, 200 degrees centigrade, 150 degrees centigrade, then it is fine. If you go beyond 250 or 200, then there may be some problem, because the housing, the connections, the material which is being used to paste, that may degrade.
And sir, any kind of, apart from sensor technology, any kind of electronics, because nowadays most of the sensors are coming with telemetries. So they are having this SCI, I2C protocols embed in the sensor itself, and
Right.
that sensors can be readily used in the market. So in that
Right.
case, sir, is there any kind of work which is done by your group where the electronics has to be withstand up to 200 or more than 200 degrees Celsius?
So right now we are working the electronics which can withstand more than 200. We are not working on that particular thing right now. And on the other point you talked about the electronics and sensor together. That's
Yes, sir.
basically the monolithic design. The
Yes, sir.
CMOS with MEMS.
Yes,
CMOS
sir.
MEMS, that's called. So CMOS MEMS in India nobody is doing. Only SCL Chandigarh. They are working in this particular area where CMOS and MEMS can be put together on the same wafer.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for responding to my question, sir. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
Hello.
Yeah, Jainji, yes.
In case of sensitivity,
Yes.
you are telling the output input slow, characteristic of slow. But
Right.
when the input output relationship is non-linear, in that case, the point to point, the sensitivity vary.
Right.
So, how can you count the sensitivity into account, whether average sensitivity or in some other way mathematical analysis is there to point out the sensitivity, as sensitivity is the most important factor.
Okay, I got your point. Most of the times, if we talk about sensors are only considered good in the particular area where those are linear. So, for example, if they are linear initially and they go saturate after the higher concentrations, so you need to consider only the linear part. So that sensor is operable in the linear part only. If it is non-linear, you need to take piecewise linear sensitivity. So then you cannot give sensitivity for the whole range. You have to mention the sensitivity for that particular range only. So it's not like average. You cannot give average sensitivity. You need to give sensitivity for the region, for the range.
Now,
Hope you got the point. Yes.
for example, in case of thermocouple,
Yes.
suppose
Yes.
different types of thermocouple, K type, E type, they have different characteristics.
Right.
And some region is linear and some region is non-linear.
Right.
So in that case, how can you?
That's why I'm saying the sensitivity is not justified for the whole range. It's justified for the range. If it is linearity varies. If the linearity is varying, you need to consider which part is your which you can consider as linear with a good correlation. And for that particular region, you have to mention your selectivity. If you are talking about thermocouples give you lookup table. Right? They give you lookup table. They will not give you a formula. They'll give you lookup table. Like for this much voltage you are getting, if you are getting this much voltage, that means this much temperature is there. So this is the same question you are asking. They will give you lookup table. So similarly, you have to make a lookup table for particular ranges. Like if you talk about temperature sensor, RTD, they will give you formulas for if it is less than 0, you have a different formula. If it is greater than 0, that has different formula.
In case of gas sensor that you are discussing,
Yes.
in your lab you are developing,
Right.
in that case, is it possible to analyze the gas spectrum?
Yeah, this is a very good question. Gas spectrum measurement depends on few factors. Whether your sensor is able to distinguish gases. So there are two terms in spectrum. One is classification and one is quantification. So classification means you have a mixture of gases, and from the mixture you can differentiate the gases. So for that, metal oxide sensors are not very good. Metal oxide sensors are not very good for spectrum analysis. If you want to have spectrum analysis, you need to go for optical sensors. For example, FTIR. you must be knowing about the system FTIR, Fourier transform IR spectroscopy. So there you can get the spectroscopic analysis of the gases, or GCMS. These type of sensors are used for spectrum analysis. Metal oxide gas sensors are not very good. Although there are some papers available for spectrum analysis where what they do, they sweep the temperature and then they try to identify the peak. But that's not very foolproof yet.
So why you are using metal oxide coating? It may create oxidation.
Sorry, come again.
In case of metal oxide coating,
Yes.
it may create oxidation.
Yeah, it is. I told in my lecture, oxidation, reduction, both the things are happening, but these are temporary. These are not permanent. So oxidation will happen once the gas is there, it will oxidize the surface, and once the gas is removed from the surface, it will come back to normal. That's the beauty of metal oxides, gas sensors. So it is not permanent.
In gas analysis, that carbon CO gas, that is the main problem. That how can you analyze that pattern? CO.
CO, there is no problem. CO is not. It doesn't damage sensing film permanently. And tin oxide, gold doped tin oxide works very well for CO. And there are other things like ZNO is also good for CO.
And that is harmful to the environment, more harmful that CO.
CO is harmful, yes. Of course it is harmful. It's called silent killer. Yeah, because it doesn't have a smell, it doesn't have any color, colorless, odorless gas, which can even kill you. It's very harmful, yes.
Is there any way to detect it?
Yeah, there are so many ways. Like I told you, metal oxide gas sensor, if you use SNO2 with gold doping, or you use zinc oxide, in both the cases you can detect the CO.
One more question, that can you know, is there is any sensor developed with the signal conditioning?
Yeah, we have already developed. We have developed sensor like this is sensor. I have shown you small sensor, and we have also demonstrated it with electronics, and we have demonstrated ammonia, H2H, and CO.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
First of all, I must congratulate for the wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to know about the computational analysis for these gas sensors. What kind of softwares are being used for this purpose?
So computational analysis of what? The signal or the sensor?
Signals.
Signals. So there are so many methods. Like people starting in the starting, people are using PCA kind of algorithms. PCA people are using, so they take data from different gases and they do PCA. This is the basic thing. Then they are doing chemometric analysis also.
Okay.
Yes. These are the most important things, PCA and chemometric analysis. These are the two most important algorithms we use for the signal analysis.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes,
Sir, I want to ask one query regarding the hardware which we use.
Yes, Sandeep.
I have one query regarding the hardware which is used for the sensors.
Okay. Yes, tell me.
Hello.
Sandeep ji, पूछिए.
Can we use the same kind of? Hello. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, audible, very much. Yes.
Sir, my query is, can we use the same kind of hardware for all the types of sensors, whether it is a gas sensor or the pressure sensor or any kind of sensor, or is it we have to use the separate hardware for every type of sensors?
Yeah, very good question, but like it's very difficult to say. Like you cannot say use same hardware for the sensors because the transduction mechanism is different. Transduction mechanism means your input and output are different, and the amount of signal which is being generated after the gas is absorbed or the pressure is applied is different. the pressure, the output ranges are different. So you cannot use same hardware. So in case of gas sensor, you will use different hardware, and in case of pressure sensor, you will use different hardware. It's not at all same. So these are very sensor specific. Yes.
Hello, sir.
Okay.
There is
Yes.
one question by
Yes.
Dr. Anupama Chaurasia.
Ji.
As a fresher, what should we start with? As in, what should be the basic step to start as a beginner in this topic? If we are not having this experience of this topic, we are just new in this topic. How should we begin?
So there are two domains. One is the material science domain, and another is the electronics domain. So if you are from a material science domain, you need to work hard on the materials. Which materials can selectively. So selectivity is a major issue, where selectivity means there are two gases. So these two gases should be separately distinguished. So one gas should not interfere with the other gas. So if your sensor is specific and specifically made for A, it should not respond to B. So it should be very selective. So you need to work hard on the material selection and understand about material dynamics and work on the selective material. If you are from the electronics background, so work as Chandraji discussed about the signal processing. So you can work on the signal processing part, how to distinguish gases from the mixture. It's a very good problem. So nowadays, most papers are not considering this problem. So for example, you have a mixture of gases. Now you have to separate the gases and quantify them. So classification and quantification problems. So if you want to work on the gas sensor thing, so there are two approaches. If you are from material background, so work on the material side. If you are from the electronics background, work on the signal part. Hope I have clarified your question. Thank you. Yeah, good morning.
Sir, I have a clarification. If suppose we are using this gas sensor on a stack of an industry, will the smoke or dust in the stack will have an impact on the material, the sensing film of the gas sensor?
For sure it will have impact. Like for example, you have receptors on the material. So like my fingers are like receptors. So your material is like this. So if smoke sits on one receptor, so that means this receptor is blocked. So this will not be available for reaction. So if you have so much smoke and then you are trying to sense the gas, it will be very difficult. So your ambient should not be very harsh in that particular thing. So what people do for that, they make conditioner kind of systems. So what they do, they make a box. In box there is an inlet. They suck the gas from the sample using some pump or something, then process that gas, and then processed gas is sent to the sensor. In that particular way, you can increase the lifetime of your sensor.
Thank you, sir. Similarly, if there is any constraint regarding the inlet temperature of the gas, since the reaction will be more at, you said that some 200 degrees Celsius is the very optimum, right? If suppose in the stack the temperature of the smoke, the gas is coming in maybe in the range of 200 degrees Celsius or 300 degrees Celsius. So we want to, is there anything that we want to process the gas and make the inlet temperature of the gas something fitted to that particular part?
Yes, gas temperature, if it is beyond below 200, that will not make any problem because it depends on the chemical composition of the gas and not the temperature. Okay, and the actual temperature of the platform is provided by the microheater. But if the temperature of smoke is so high that it is 300 or 400 degrees centigrade, that will make impact. And in that particular case, you need to make an air conditioning chamber that I told you earlier. So you need to first process that gas, make it at the temperature you want, make it dehumidify it, because humidity is also an important parameter. You need to dehumidify it and then send it to the sensor.
Okay, sir. You talked about removing the mass for increasing the efficiency. the removing the mask will may impact the life of the sensor.
Yes, it will reduce the mechanical stability of the sensor, but the vibrations it can take are like huge. The MEMS structure are very small, and if this structure is very small, this spring constant will be high. And if it is a large structure, and if it is then you reduce the mass, the spring constant would be very low. It will be very sensitive to vibrations. In this particular case, because it is very small structure, then it won't be a very problem. But yes, the mechanical strength will go down. That's very true. Yes.
Is there any difference in online and static, that is a dynamic and static measurements? Whether two different tables will be there for the same gas, or for static measurement set of readings may be there, or for dynamic set of reading may be there, like that, or same lookup table for both the things, either it's static or dynamic will be same, because since the reaction time is changing.
Yeah, reaction time, exactly. So what happens in some sensors, the response time is very slow. For that particular case, what we go for static measurement. But where the response time is faster, we go for dynamic measurements. Of course, there will be the change will be majorly on response time and recovery time, and not the response. So response will be same for dynamic or static, but recovery time and response time, that will change.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you for the very nice presentation, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, one query more.
Yes.
I want to ask, at the BTech level, we get the projects from the students, which is used on the Arduino boards,
right?
Cheap boards. So we can use their ultrasonic sensors, IF sensors, pressure sensor, anything we can interface with it.
Right.
So can we interface this gas sensor with it also?
For sure, for sure. So for example, there are two components. One is micro heater, and another two terminals are for resistance measurement. So this micro heater you have to control. First you need to make a controller so that you can control the micro heater temperature. So for that you can interface a PID controller, something like that. And with the PID controller, you can control the temperature of the micro heater. On the other hand, you can have two terminals where you have to measure the resistance live. So for resistance measurement, you can use either the voltage divider circuit, or you can use the constant current source so that you can measure the resistance, voltage and then resistance. Yes, you can use the Arduino, yes. Like in 2010 or so, like first time I used Arduino only. Yeah.
Okay. So
hello, sir.
Hello. Arduino is a very versatile board which we can use for any kind of sensor.
Yeah, it's a very versatile platform. Yes.
Can we have a certain kind of versatile platform
okay, hello,
for all
sir.
the things?
Yes.
If we just don't go with Arduino board, can we make a other board which can serve to all the purposes of different kind of sensors? Hello.
So please unmute.
Hello.
Okay.
Hope I am audible.
Yeah.
So it is very difficult to make a universal board which can work, but Arduino is very much universal already. The main part is the readout part. So readout part will be different for all the sensors. So for example, in some cases you want to measure the resistance, in some cases you want to measure the voltage, in some cases you want to measure the current. So readout will be slightly different, but signal processing you can take the help of microcontroller, that's for sure. So Arduino is very good in that particular area.
Okay. If we just benchmark for the accuracy point of view or the precision point of view, is the Arduino board precise in its measurement?
No, it's not. So it is for student projects. It's not for like R&D projects.
Okay, it cannot be used for the practical applications.
Practical applications are difficult and depends on the required accuracy. For example, in Arduino, most of the times you are getting a 10-bit ADC. So 10-bit ADC will not give you very much precise values. So there are very good Arduino boards available where they give you the 12-bit ADC. So and if you take the example of NI data acquisition card, there you have 24-bit ADCs. So those are industrial standards. So there is a huge difference.
So we have to use those for making the industrial products. Okay.
So what you can do is
Right. So
you start with Arduino, you make a proof of concept, then build your own PCB with improved components. That you can do.
Right. Right, sir. Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So,
Sir,
Hello.
it's Chandan again. Hello. Sir, it's
Yes,
Chandan
sir.
again. Sir, I am
Yes.
asking one more question out of query. In your presentation, sir, you have shown
Yes.
some simulation snapshots,
Right.
some simulation results. So I hope you have also told that the simulations were done in console multiphysics simulation platform. So while making these micro heaters, different types of spiral coils are made, and different types of meander structures
Right.
are also made. So in that simulation, it may happen that for the analysis or characterization part, the inductance, resistance, means what all intrinsic parameters you generally use to measure in that simulation platform for proper optimization of the sensor.
See, okay, so mostly the simulation was done on micro heater. So micro heater, we have checked for the current, we have checked for the temperature which we are observing, we have checked for the resistance also. So are we so that we can relate it when we do the practical thing, we can relate the experimental with the simulations. So these are the important things, because inductance and all is not very important, because this is not that type of device. So only the resistance, temperature, and the currents. These are the important parameters, and also the voltage distribution. So are we able to get the proper voltage distribution as we applied or not? The insulators which we have taken below the micro heater should be highly electrically insulating and also thermally insulating, and the top insulator between interdigital electrodes and micro heater, that should be electrically insulating but thermally conducting, so that it can transfer heat upward and not the downward. So these are the few things you need to consider when you do the simulations.
And the flow of gas means these micro heaters will be exposed for gas measurement. So the flow of gas, is it also simulated in console, or just only the micro heating part is simulated?
Just only the micro heater part, yes.
So what is the magnitude of current generally fed to this micro heaters?
Somewhere around 20 milliamperes.
Okay.
Yes. And depending on the requirement, it is most of the times less than that.
So in when the sensor is getting after post fabrication, so for feeding that amount of current, you might be requiring a constant current source. So what kind of circuitry generally used for that thing?
So we make our own supplies over here. We make dedicated supply for this, and we make a PID controller based supply control, and the feedback is temperature. So till the temperature is reached, PID controller will keep pumping the current, and it will increase the temperature. So PID controlled supply is made.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for answering the questions.
Welcome.
So now I think the question and answer session has been over.
Sir, excuse me, sir. What is the sensor you are using for measuring the temperature of the micro heater? Because since it is very small one, what kind of sensor you will use for measuring the temperature?
Okay, so the same coil is being used to measure the temperature also. So we are providing some current to the coil, that is giving the temperature will rise, and because of the temperature rise, the resistance of the material will change. So we are constantly measuring the resistance of the coil, and we are back calculating the temperature from the resistance. Is that clear?
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
So because there is a state relation between resistance and temperature. R is equals to R naught 1 plus alpha delta T. So this is the first order equation. So there is direct relation between temperature and resistance.
Hello, sir. I have a question.
Yes, one.
Sir, in a gas sensor, when we are putting to a particular chamber and we are providing the gas, and you are saying that humidity measurement is one of the important parameter. So
No.
how we improving the or inducing the different humidity? That means level of humidity. How we increase or reduce? We can
Okay.
increase the temperature, but how we improving this humidity?
So there are two ways to incorporate the humidity inside the chamber. One is you change the flow rate and pass the carrier gas from the bubbler. So for example, you have a bubbler, you have an input air to this, and that air is controlled by MFC. So controlling the MFC, you just change the flow rate, and as soon as you change the flow rate, it will carry more water vapors and it will go through the chamber. Another method is this bubbler is heated at different temperatures so that you get different amount of vapors and you can carry with the same carrier gas, nitrogen or oxygen. There are two ways. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Is there any more question from the audience side?
नो आई थिंक आगे कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं और भी कोई नहीं थैंक यू ऑल ऑफ यू to stay with Dr. Rahul, and you have get benefited from his lecture and also from his knowledge, and you have done a very fantastic research work in the area of gas sensing. So I thanks him for coming in this particular platform and give a nice presentation. So thank you once again, sir.
Thank you, Jayanji. Thank you so much.
We will take your help in future also, sir.
Most welcome.
So now we conclude the session and we stop the this particular session, session 1. And I request you, all of you, please again present at 12:15 p.m. today. Okay, so we will start our presentation at 12:15 p.m. So you have a half an hour gap. So you refresh yourself and again present at 12:50. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jayanji. Thank you so much. All the very best.
Okay, sir.
All the best.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You have done a very nice work. A
Thank you
nice
so much.
presentation too.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
अगर अलग दिन होता मंडे को होता तो सर कुछ और भी दिखाते, लेकिन संडे के कारण सर थोड़ा सा कुछ
हाँ
दिखा।
वही कोई वर्किंग डे होता तो मैं लैब में दिखाता शायद। तो
सर हम लोग को बहुत अच्छा लगता है अगर लैब देखने को मिलता है। यस
नेक्स्ट टाइम कभी फिर। हाँ
डेफिनेटली सर, डेफिनेटली सर।
अच्छा लगा मेरे को, लोगों ने क्वेश्चन पूछे, इसका मतलब लोगों ने इंटरेस्ट लिया है। इट्स वेरी गुड।
सर हैं काफी इंटरेस्टेड लोग हैं सर, कुछ लोग तो हमेशा मिल जाते हैं, बहुत लोग, क्योंकि इसमें मैक्सिमम फैकल्टी है सर।
Yeah, very good, very good.
There are faculty all over India.
Yes, very good.
Almost every state, some presentation are there.
Yeah.
I search in the biodata list of the participant. So every state, north to south, east to west, every state included in this particular workshop. And faculty from MTech student, 1 or 2 MTech students also here. I think 5 to 6 research scholars, and mainly maximum assistant professors, some associate professor, and some professors are also on this platform.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Okay, Jayanji. Thank you so much. Thank you. All the very best. Thank you.
Now we end the meeting. So we will start next presentation. My presentation.